Well, a very warm welcome to the Gospel Church podcast. It's great to have your company with us again today. And my guest is an old friend and colleague, Derek Lamont. Derek is minister of Hope Church down in Leith, which is, well, Derek, welcome. Tell us what Leith is.
What Leith is? Leith is a multicultural, exciting, diverse, different part of town. In fact, it's not even part of Edinburgh, really. It's its own little city. And we were right in the middle of it.
Traditionally, it was the seaport of Leith, of Edinburgh, wasn't it?
Yep, it was. And there's still remnants of that. There's a kind of mixture of old Leith and new Leith, which I think for the most part gets on quite well. But it's very different from what it was. It was very, it was kind of in real need of regeneration over the last maybe 20, 30, 40 years. And that's certainly beginning to happen now.
Yeah, in Scotland, we think of sunshine in Leith, we think of Hibs, we think of train spotting, I suppose. That's the kind of images. Is there a bit of all that in modern Leith?
Yeah, it's a great place to people watch if you sit in a cafe, because you'll always end up chuckling at something on the street. Because there's just a lot of variety and a lot of good things going on.
Yeah, and it's joined, I think, this main street between Edinburgh and Leith is called Leith Walk. I heard that it was one of the highest populated streets in Scotland. Have you heard that?
Yeah, within the UK, I think, actually, it's just got a very high density of population within something like a quarter of a mile of the actual walk itself as a circumference. It's really densely populated. Very high population.
Great, okay. Just briefly tell us a wee bit about you, and we're especially interested in your ministry experience. I mean, it seems to me that you've done it all. You've been an assistant, you've done a traditional church, you've done rural, you've done, you tell the story.
Yeah, I have been in the ministry for 36 years, 36 years, and started in the Highlands in Roskeen, worked alongside very well-known preacher in free church circles, Kenny MacDonald, for 5 years, and then he retired through ill health, and I took on the job, and then moved kind of kicking and screaming to Edinburgh on God's call to St Columba's, which was at that point in real need of redevelopment, and I was given a 5-year appointment to try with a group of people to try and build up the work there, and that was in 2001. So, and I was in I've been in St Columba's ever since till 2 years ago, and moved to Leith.
Excellent. I mean, you moved to St Columba's. Folk, very often imagine city centre churches, in ministry terms, a bit like a cruise liner, big, affluent, packed, student, vibrant. 2001 was the picture a bit different.
Yeah, it's more like the Vital Spark, to be honest. Only some people get that picture.
Scottish folk of a certain age will know about the Vital Spark.
Yeah, the church, the denomination had undergone an unhelpful and sad split, and St Columba's was probably one of the worst affected congregations. So I think there was only about 15 or 20 people left in that congregation, and I think the presbytery looked at, well, will they just merge it with another church, or will they give it one last go? So they decided to give it one last go, and God very strongly pulled us down here, and we've really just seen God working in lots of different ways since then.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't focus on the St Columba's story today, but it's a great story. Our listeners will know that, from 2001, it was dispirited, it was despondent. But from that, Haddington emerged, Esk Valley emerged, Cornerstone Morningside emerged, from Cornerstone Morningside, Cornerstone Gilmerton emerged, and arguably Christchurch Edinburgh was kind of adopted, and now we've got Leith. So, and Winchborough. So that's 7 churches emerged out of one. So, it's not all a bad story. I'm interested, as you are, in people. Now, you mentioned Kenny MacDonald there. Most folk listening wouldn't know who Kenny MacDonald is or was. An absolute legend. For our listeners, can you tell us a little bit about Kenny? What sort of person was he? And what did you learn from working alongside him?
Kenny was a very dynamic preacher and individual. Amazing energy. Went into the ministry later in life. He'd been in the customs. He was a customs officer, and he went in later in life. He was also a very talented footballer. Probably could have become a professional footballer in his early days. And he was just in ministry anyway. For me, he was single-minded, passionate. Didn't suffer fools, but was incredibly gentle and gracious with people who everyone actually. But he was single-minded for the gospel, and for me, maybe the greatest thing was he was a hard man who could weep, and I think that was really powerful because he was a man's man. If you'd ever been tackled by him in football, you knew he was a man's man. But he also had an incredibly soft heart for the gospel and would do anything to share that gospel with people. Yeah, he loved people. He was amazing with people. And Rita, his wife, their whole lives, and obviously they lost their daughter, Alison, at 18, who was lost in India. They always believed she was alive, but they never saw her again. And that kind of was a perspective that moulded their whole ministry and lives as well.
Because in an age of toxic masculinity, Kenny was a real man in the most healthy sense of that word, wasn't he? Because
yeah, absolutely.
I remember a story when he went to preach in Ruskin for the call, as we say. Someone said, "Oh, we've got plans for this church. We're going to close this off and close that off." And Kenny says, "No, we're closing nothing off. Our aim is to fill this place." So single-minded and passionate was. I mean, what was his secret? Was he a preacher? Was he a people person? Or was he, to use Spurgeon's term, an all-round minister?
Yeah, in many ways, he was an all-round minister, apart from administration and church politics, which he hated. And I think he was a great preacher because it was full of the Spirit. It was, it was a tremendous... I mean, my first meetings with Kenny was through football camps, and they were great because, again, he would be just one of the boys in many ways, and he was great all day. But then his talks at night were so powerful and Jesus-centered and passionate that and emotional that it was very, very powerful. And he touched the heart. I think that was his great preaching. And also he was a tremendous, he was tremendously insightful about people. He really read people well. So he knew how to pastor people. He had a great really
emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
In terms of preaching, I think, he was a very simple preacher, but I think he was, he would never call himself an academic, and he wasn't, but he was smart. He really was clearly smart. And he had an ability to really communicate the gospel well in simple language. But interestingly enough, a lot of our readers know that some of our churches back in the day in the Highlands would have Gaelic services, and the Gaelic used was very inaccessible. Kenny's was completely different, really accessible. And he was, exactly the same in English. Now, your dad was a minister. I knew him really well. I was privileged to be his minister for a few years. He came from a different age, but what did you learn from your dad observing his kind of ministry model?
Again, I think very people-centered. Our home was always open, sometimes to our chagrin and annoyance occasionally, but it was a great home, and he always had time for people, and he always went out of his way for people. And I think that was very significant. And also his diligence, hard work. I don't know how he did it. He had sometimes 5 sermons to do on a week, 3 in English and 2 in Gaelic. And he typed them all out. It was an astonishing work. And he visited hospitals here, and he visited homes. He was a really regular visitor in the kind of old-fashioned way that it was done
An
in these
actual
days.
visit with
Yeah.
tea and a
Yeah,
scone.
yeah. Oh yeah, the whole thing. Yeah, and he knew that he was great with children, and again, sometimes to our annoyance, that he would go to all the houses in the congregation that had kids in them with sweets. We never get sweets, which was hilarious. But that was probably because my mum was a dietitian. So yeah, that was the main kind of things. And he always had time for us, which was great. Yeah.
So, you were brought up in that context. Care, service was the family business. You and Katrina, I think, model that as well. Did you ever resent that? That essentially you're brought up in a home that wasn't self-centered but other-centered?
No, I didn't really. I used to love the fact that because we did the young people would come in on a Sunday night, and I would get to participate in that way before I should have done in terms of my age. So I enjoyed being with older young people, teenagers, students. And yeah, no, there was occasions that it was difficult because it was sometimes like slightly awkward people that he would have staying and visiting, and people that maybe no one else would have in their homes, which was powerful for them and good and significant. But as a young person, you kind of found it a bit annoying sometimes.
Yeah, we're going to do a special podcast on all these awkward people, but we're going to charge £1,000 a time for access to it, just to raise some money. Tremendous. So, over 30 years ministry, every day is a school day. How
sure.
do you keep learning? You are fresh. Trust me, you are. In the best sense of that word. How do you keep fresh? How do you keep learning?
Well, I think it's our modus operandi, as it were, as Christians, is to keep learning. We're disciples, so we're always learning. And I think a lot of that is internal, is being self-aware, learning about yourself, learning about your weaknesses and feelings, and examining your motives all the time. So there's a lot of self-examination in that learning, in the light of the Word, I think, in the light of the Bible, and in light of relationship with Christ. But then also just being aware of the culture around you, being involved in it, knowing people, understanding and getting alongside people to find out how they're thinking. And again, a lot of people watching. I read people, I think about people a lot, and I think that's how you're learning. And then obviously learning from others who are wiser and more experienced, more intelligent than you, and who have done a lot of maybe research into culture and into people and into the Bible and all these things. So yeah,
because you were saying before we come in that you don't listen to a lot of podcasts and stuff like that. I mean, you kind of know about culture. I mean, do you read? What do you read? Do you read people? How do you know stuff?
I don't really know. I don't read a lot, to be honest. I scan a lot of things, and on the online. I get snippets of stuff. It's that kind of thing. It's a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. I sort of piggyback on the knowledge and the hard work of others a lot of the time.
We all know someone who doesn't know Jesus yet. We know God desires everyone to know Him. We know He hears our prayers. What if every one of us prayed for 10 people we know? What if our praying opens the door to us sharing about Jesus? So yeah, like most of us, you're a magpie. You like to...
Yeah.
I mean,
steal.
When I was a student in downstairs in Edinburgh Theological Seminary, Donald MacLeod told us that if we had an original idea, it was probably a bad idea. So, just keep reading other people and thinking about other folk. So you're Minister of Hope Church Leith. I was there last Sunday morning, really enjoyed it. Tell us a story of how you went to Hope.
Well, I think God had placed in our hearts for quite a long time, both myself and Katrina, that when I reached the age of 60 or around then, that we would like to step back from St. Columba's and do some other kind of ministry work, whatever that would be. We felt 24 years in one place was long enough. They needed someone younger, someone with more energy to take it to the next level, kind of thing. And just to cut a long story short, it ended up that the opportunity arose to consider a kind of redevelopment, replant, new start in Leith because it was closing. And we originally tried to get a couple of young planters, potential planters, young guys, and their wives to consider going, and we would go and support them, just sit in the background and support them. And they declined that particular offer, maybe for whatever reason. And so we thought, well, maybe God's telling us to do it. So that's how we ended up going to Leith. We saw it as a great opportunity to do something, being called to do something fresh and new.
Because, I mean, previously it had been an old traditional church. I mean, it had some ministers there who gave it, their best shot, but it just wasn't thriving. I think everybody knew that it wasn't thriving, and the denomination basically closed it down, but kept it on ice. Do you think that was a good thing to do?
I think it was done very well. These things are never easy to do. I think there was a small group of very faithful people who were going along, and they recognised they weren't going to be able to call a minister. They also maybe didn't feel they had the energy to redevelop the work. So when this opportunity arose, I think for the most part I know they were very supportive. Many of them were very supportive and very encouraged. And we finished with a Thanksgiving service with a view to reopening. And those who were part of the church then have mainly gone to churches closer to them, more local, but are still really supportive. And I think that was a huge factor for us, that their support and their encouragement really helped us to make the decision to come.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great story because, there was was it a funeral, was it a celebration? It was a mixture of both. The last service celebrated what had been done over the years, and, there's folk from Leith Church who are now serving all over the country and all over the world, leaving it fallow and getting just a new... I speak of a new DNA. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think probably there's you go in, like you do into any kind of mission context, with a different mindset, because you realise that you've got to reach out with the gospel in order to survive, and that you will be reaching out to a very different context, a very different culture, and a very different generation that don't know the Bible, aren't used to church, don't understand the gospel. So you're kind of, it's like what maybe when we were younger, it would be like us sending people to different parts of the world with the gospel in a kind of mission context. And that, I think that's what we're facing today. So it does have a different mentality that's needed, I think, to do that.
And in the 2 years the building's been developed, what did you do to it?
Yeah, we basically gutted it, really, which I'm sure enraged some people. But the reasons were good. We wanted to have a flexible, warm space. Quite succeeded in getting the warm bit yet. But it's very flexible. It's updated. It's very useful for hospitality, for welcoming people. It's not austere in any way. But I hope we've kept the kind of architectural beauty of it as well. I hope we haven't done a bad job with that. And at least most people who've seen it, who knew it before, think it's helpful and useful.
I think it is sympathetic. It's very bright and cheery. Now, with respect, you couldn't have said that of the previous incarnation. But it's interesting that people, especially young people, these days like the old. They like connectedness, so a building that's modern but yet old has got heritage. It's a bit like a church or denomination. It's hopefully fresh, but it's also got long historic roots. That's not a bad thing. Okay, you're not 18, although you look 28. Folk often assume that church planting is a young person's game. Comment on that.
I don't think there's an age definition, to be honest. I think there's a lot of advantages of being young in terms of connectivity with people and the kind of people you're likely to meet, and energy and zeal and learning and brain power. But I think there also are some advantages of being older. I think I've got experience. I'm not fazed by some of the fears of insecurity that church planting can bring quite so much. Our fine young family have all grown up and have left the home, so I'm time rich. Katrina and I are time rich. And yeah, that gives us certain advantages. So it's swings and roundabouts, I think, to be honest. And I think the calling is more important, and the vision for doing it.
I like that. So it's more of a mindset and a mentality than each thing.
Yeah.
And it'd be great to see not just older guys in church planting, but people who have been in other congregations. I mean, one of my things is that, church planting is distinctive, but it's not all that different to ministry. The basics of ministry are transferable across all the platforms: revitalization, city centre, planting. Do you agree with that? That basically it's preaching,
absolutely,
and visiting folk, get along with people.
It's been about people, and it's just keeping the Great Commission and the gospel central to what you're doing. You're just maybe not working from the same base. There's maybe a bit more insecurity at some levels. And there's potentially more of an urgency, but I think in reality that urgency ought to be with us in all our ministries. That there's a lost and dark world spiritually out there that need Jesus, and we need to reach out with that gospel to them.
Now, you're known as the king of the frank conversation, the candid encounters. So let's be frank. People out there, some people say, it's all about church planting these days. It's so glamorous. It's the in thing. Everybody's attracted to it. It's just a fad. I'm assuming you've got some comments about that, or don't say to me, no comment. Have you heard that? Is that a thing? Is that perception?
Not personally. I haven't heard it to me. I mean, it's like anything like that. If people have got objections, they don't say it to the people that they're objecting to necessarily. I think that there's a lot of misconceptions there. I don't think it's all about church. I think it's all about Jesus, and it should always be about Jesus, whether it's an existing church or a revitalized church, an old church, a new church. I think it's all about the kingdom of God and developing that. And every church was a church plant at one time. So I don't think it's rocket science that if his kingdom is to come, it's through the planting of churches and the developing of churches and the sustaining of churches. That's how God works. It's kind of pretty New Testament, really. So it's certainly not glamorous. It's very similar to all kinds of ministry. No, it's not glamorous, and it's not. I don't think it's certainly not a fad. If it's a fad, that's a sad thing for any denomination.
It's been a fad for 2,000 years.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good fad. But I actually don't. We don't have that very few church plants. We've got very few guys thinking about church planting. So I'm not sure where that perception comes from. There's a huge need. There's a huge, vast world out there of lost people, and we need guys in existing churches. We need guys to fill vacancies. We need guys to plant churches, to be assistants. We need lots and lots more guys. So if any guys are listening to this and they're not content with not content just to sit about, I'll forget that particular issue. But do consider the ministry. It's the highest calling.
Yeah, that's great. So, I mean, Hope Leith is, in some circles, called a kind of brownfield plant. It's pre-existing and it's replanted. Terminology is not important. I think there's some advantages to that for something that's absolutely brand new, white sheet of paper. I mean, obviously the building's one of them. What are the pros and cons of moving into a replant as opposed to a pure plant?
We've found it really useful to have a building. I think there's issues, obviously, or distractions maybe sometimes with the building. But I think I think what you said earlier is a significant things that are established and long-standing have a bit of kudos in society one way or another. People know it's been there. They know it's not a fly-by-night thing, and they expect church to look like a church. So there's that advantage, and you're on the ground running. Really, you've hit the ground running in one way, and sometimes I feel we're almost a bit too established already because we've got the church and we've started services. But it's hugely energy draining to be in a hotel or a school hall or a community facility every week and be setting up and taking down and not having somewhere to call your own. A lot of our vision is to link with the community in terms of using the building usage, whether it be with Bethany Christian Trust or other organisations, and we know that we'll build a lot of links that way. So yeah, we think there's advantages generally in it for us.
So I was involved in church planting like over 40 years ago. In those days, it was called church extension. We did it really differently then. One of the things was you just basically thought, we're going to start a church. You hire a school. Day one, you just get services going. These days, the philosophy is a bit different. There's pre-plant phase, can be a year up to 2 years, developing a core team, talking about ministry philosophy. How important is that pre-plant phase? Is it something that you're a similar age to me, that you had to be won over to? I mean, by nature, you're a doer. You just got on with it. So was it difficult just to slow it all down and do the pre-launch prep?
No, I loved it. I thought it was great. It was really significant. And we'd planned it anyway, but it was helped by the fact that the building was unavailable because it was being redeveloped at the time, and that was for well over a year. So we met in our house on a Tuesday evening with a small team of people who were committed to recognising our vision to reach the people of Leith, to have a special burden concern for the least, the last, and the lost in society, because Leith has got that demographic, and also to further the work of Sparkle Sisters, which Katrina, my wife, was involved in, which I work with abused and homeless, or survivors of abuse and women who are homeless. And I think that required us to spend time thinking through what the church would look like, what would be our focus, what was important to us, and get to know each other very well, recognise that it's not just about a Sunday morning, that it's about we're a community together, we live together, we live our lives separately, but we're a community of believers that we do things and pray for each other and learn from each other and develop relationships with people who are not Christians, who can also be introduced to their Christian community.
The least, the last, and the lost. Leith is a diverse community. You will have surgeons, you will have homeless folk, you will have retail workers, nurses, tradespeople. Do you think a church should aim at one particular demographic, like the least, the last, and the lost, or should a church aim for every demographic?
Yeah, I'd go against the current church planting in vogue about that, which talks about just reaching a specific demographic. When I said we had a burden for least and last Lord, I think that's biblical. I think that's God's emphasis. It's not ours. It's a gospel for the poor, and I think that's not just poor in spirit. But I think the best churches are the churches that reflect the demographic of the community, which are diverse, so that and we've spoken a lot about that, so that people who are so that if students come or if professionals are there, and there's others who are maybe recovering alcoholics or homeless or unemployed or whatever situation they're in, that they recognise they belong, that they're respected and loved, that there's a family, that we're brothers and sisters. And I like the fact that the church should be diverse.
Absolutely. We're zooming through our chat here, and we're near the end, but one thing I want to chat about is a little bit about chaplaincy. You're involved in chaplaincy. Some folk love it. Other folks say, well, it's totally diverse from a church, and so it's really not healthy. How have you found chaplaincy, and does it have a place in the portfolio of mission tools?
Absolutely, yeah. And not just for ministers. I think there's many chaplains in Scotland who are not ministers, but who are Christians, and it gives an opportunity for Christians to be in the public space, which is really important. It is really valuable for those who are involved in terms of the actual chaplains, because it opens them up to a world that they otherwise wouldn't be involved in, to see. Again, that's maybe one of the places where I learn a lot about people and what people are thinking. There's very few Christians in the environment I'm involved in, and it's just interesting and fascinating to be a presence there. I think it's good for the individual, but it provides opportunities for outreach, to speak to people, to get to know them. It's long term, it's slow work, it's relationship building, and but I've never prayed so much about anything as I do about my chaplaincy. So praying for people that maybe no one else in the world prays for, praying for them regularly, and meeting them on a regular basis. It's kind of ploughing work, and Katrina's been doing it for much longer than me, and has a really strong relationship with a lot of people. In fact, last night she was feeding 28 of them in our church hall for their Christmas dinner, the Hibs girls. And these things are just about building relationships with people.
I think chaplaincy works well when it is connected to the church, in the sense that you're supported by the church. You're not paid for, prayed for by the church. But it's, they are holding the rope as you go into places where the church is not normally there. And, that's a good winsome. I'm just coming into land now. I think you're a really highly organised person. In fact, I've actually do seminars with some of our guys on that, and they've been great. Also, another thing, people might laugh at this. I mean, there's this phrase, culture trumps, we'll eat strategy for breakfast. That church culture is so much more important. So whenever I go into any of your churches, whether it was Ruskeen or St. Columba's or Hobleith, they're nice. They're tidy. They're clean. The pictures are straight up in the wall. I think that's real. I think that is really important. I mean, it wouldn't bring revival, but I'm sensing it. You also think these things are important for culture in a church. Why?
Well, I think if you ask most people, if you spoke to most people about their own homes, they spend time and energy in their own homes. Now, I know the church isn't God's home, isn't our home, but I think your home, your office, your garage, your garden, it reflects your character to a degree, and sometimes not in a judgmental way. It can reflect if you're dizzy or whatever, if you're chaotic. But and I think some of it's just plain OCD. But I definitely think a church should be somewhere that looks like it's loved and cared for, because it's important from that point of view. It's where we gather, it's where we meet, it's where we worship together. And I think if it's shoddy and broken down looking, then well, that says a little bit about what we think of it. And I think that sometimes does reflect what people think. They think it's, you're getting rid of something that you don't want anymore. You say, you give it to the church. It's like a charity case. It'll do for the church. Whereas I think, no, the church should have the best of things as well, because we love it and because it reflects what we think of our Saviour in many ways. So yeah, I do. I like a church to look good. I sometimes probably think too much about that.
Derek, thanks a lot for giving us your time. This is the beginning of 2026. Are you looking forward to this year? What are your hopes for your church? What are your hopes for our listeners?
I'm really looking forward to 2026 because from a practical point of view, we've had a lot of work done on the church and the manse, and it'll all be finished. And I think I'm really looking forward to focusing on mission and on developing the work, on building discipleship within the church and meeting up with people. And it's very exciting. It's a dark world we live in, and it seems to get darker by the day in many ways. But the light of the gospel is getting brighter because of that. And I think that's our great hope. And our hope is in Jesus, in it all, in the knowledge that He has a purpose, He's a plan, He's coming back. And the zeal of the Lord Almighty will do this.
Great.
That's a great hope.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Derek. And thank you to the listener for joining us today. It's been great having you. We are encouraged by the growing band of folk who are tuning in to the Healthy Gospel Church podcast. Hope you enjoy this series. Join us for future series and tell your friends about it. Thank you. And think about these things. Pray about it. Think about church planting, chaplaincy, the ability to reach out, diverse communities, all the things that we've spoken about today. Just ponder these things in your heart and pray for Hope Church Leith. Look it up on the website, look up Sparkle Sisters and all the other ministries associated with the church. Thank you.